Say your audience is showing up more on Instagram. You can create an Instagram profile without having a whole strategy of how you're going to be posting. You can create an Instagram profile with one Instagram post. The important thing is you're creating a place for people to find you. Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of the Master the Media podcast. I'm your host, Amy Gorin, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to show up when things aren't perfect. And this is something that's very near and dear to me this week because let's just say my week was a cluster. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But before I do, I just want to share that we're going to be hosting a free masterclass very soon on how to land $50,000 in the next 6 months as a healthcare professional. And you can grab your free spot at masterthemedia.co/masterclass. I'm going to be sharing lots of tips that I've never shared before. So, okay, I chose today's topic because I actually just got off of a coaching call with my students, with my Master the Media students about this very topic. We spent pretty much the whole coaching call talking about how to show up, how to be present when things are not perfect. And this is something that I was trying to decide earlier today. I was like, should I just skip recording an episode this week? Because I consecutively over the last few nights, maybe I got like one full night's of sleep, like over the last 3 nights. My daughter's been sick. She had a really high fever, did not want to sleep unless she was being held. We didn't have a night nanny or a day nanny actually the last few days. And so I basically didn't do any work. My husband didn't do any work and we were kind of just surviving. We finally got a sitter for a few hours today. And I was like, okay, I'm exhausted. I can either skip recording an episode or I can show up and not be perfect, but I can still show up. My office is a mess. So my background is blurred, so you can't see it. I did not have any time to put makeup on today, but I'm here and we're talking. And I think this is actually a perfect way to dive in because it's impossible as a human to do everything perfectly. If you waited for things to be perfect, for the situation to be ideal, to launch that website, to launch a podcast, to start an Instagram, to start Master the Media, then you would never get started with anything. And that's the reality of being human. And that's especially my reality now. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I run a business. Thank goodness I have other coaches to help me. When I told them what was happening this week, I was like, can you guys take care of our student only Facebook community? I will still show up to coach our students, which I did this afternoon. And, I took a 15-minute power nap before. Again, I would have loved a 2-hour nap. That would have been perfect. Yes, but, a power nap was better than nothing. And so that's really, what it comes down to with everything. A lot of times people will come into one of our into say our Master the Media free community. We have a Facebook group that we run that people can join for free, and they're like, oh, I want to start Master the Media in 5 years when things are perfect. There's never a perfect time to start getting featured in the media, to start working with brands, because your situation is never going to be perfect. I hate to be morbid, but like the only time you're ever going to have a to-do list that's completely empty is probably when you are dying. So I just want to encourage everyone to make the most of the time you do have right now. And so one of the things we were talking about in today's student coaching call was, what if you don't have a social media? What if you don't have a website? What should you do first? And so there's a lot of potential answers. One of the things that I told my student who asked this question, I was like, okay, in the first 2 modules of Master the Media, we help you figure out what your niche is. We help you get really, really narrow. So if you're like, hey, my niche is oncology nutrition, we help you get even more narrow than that. Like, are you talking to people who have cancer, who are cancer survivors, who are trying to prevent cancer, who have, there's a million different ways you can take that. And then from there, we help you focus on finding your ideal customer avatar. So who are you talking to online? Where does that person spend time? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Are they in Facebook groups? How old are they? Are they married? Do they have kids? What's their annual income? Do they go to college? How much do they spend on their grocery bill? Things like that. Like once we help you figure those two things out, I ended up telling the student, I was like, then from there, what I would suggest is creating a super simple survey. You can create it on Google Forms. It's totally free. If you have a newsletter list, you can send it out to that. If you don't have a list, you can send it to a few people, say minimum 10 to 12 friends and family or people in your private practice, and find out, where are they spending their time online. And so it might be Facebook, it might be LinkedIn, it might be Instagram, and then start with that one profile. You cannot be everywhere all at once. You literally cannot, unless you're a huge company who has a huge budget. And so, say your audience on showing up on Facebook, and that's a slightly older population usually than Instagram. Sometimes those audiences overlap a little bit. I love Facebook groups. It's a great way. They're a great way to start a community. Once people come in your door, you can ask them membership questions where you can say, hey, I'm going to give you this free guide if you give me your email address. Then you can get their email address, and that's a way to not only you're growing your community by getting people into your Facebook group, but you're also growing your newsletter list, which you can use to sell your own products, to sell a book that you wrote. But you can also offer to collaborate with brands to, talk about, maybe share a blog post that you wrote for their audience. And usually newsletter lists are very high engagement. A typical open rate would be like 15 to 20%. But say, in the Master of Media newsletter list, like our average email was between 30 and 60% open rate. And that's a really good engagement rate for someone, for a brand potentially wanting to sponsor a newsletter blast. And that newsletter blast, depending on your list size, your engagement size, engagement rate, things like that, it could be anywhere from $500 to $6,500 to sponsor one newsletter blast. Say your audience is showing up more on Instagram. You can create an Instagram profile without having a whole strategy of how you're going to be posting. You can create an Instagram profile with one Instagram post. The important thing is you're creating a place for people to find you. So in that profile, have your picture, have your name, your credentials, have an email address that's either in your bio, or you could have the email button that you can have in business profiles, and have what media outlets you've been featured in if you've been featured in some. So you could say in your bio, as seen in, and I always tag the outlets that are short. So like CNN, ABC. I don't do like the one that's like 20 characters long, because that's going to take up too much space. In episode 21 of the Master of the Media podcast, I actually interviewed one of our students, Caitlin Hipley. At the time, she had one Instagram post. And we actually came back to that a lot in our interview, in our conversation, because at the time that I interviewed her, she had earned, I think, $15,000 in brand partnerships. Since then, it's only been a couple months later, she's earned $50,000 total. I think maybe now she has 2 Instagram posts. But the point was, she was able to collaborate with brands in big ways and earn a lot of income from that without having more than one Instagram post. And really, it's, in her case, it was more about, having people be able to find her, whether it's potential nutrition clients or potential media that wants to interview her, or potential brands that want to work with her. It's less about, having followers, having engagement. All those things are nice to have and can come later. Same thing with a web page. You don't have to have a fancy website. For my nutrition brand, Plant Based with Amy, I had a homemade website that I made myself for probably like the first 10 to 12 years I was in business. It wasn't ugly, but it wasn't pretty. It was a little clunky. I made it on this platform called Jimdo that, I think they're still in business. I'm not sure. But I was telling my students in today's coaching call, like the amount of income that I've earned from my nutrition brand, it didn't really change when I did finally invest in getting a beautiful website, actually, that I spent a lot of time making. It looks like me. It has I kind of call it like, it has my personality. It just was a labor of love, and it was very fun to do and very fulfilling. But I can't say that I've made a lot more money because I have that website. Brands were interested in working with me before I had a pretty website. They're still interested in working with me that now that I have one. The only thing that changed is, my new website is a lot easier to add, media features to and things like that. And I was able to monetize my blog, which I couldn't do with the previous platform I was using. So my new website is on WordPress. I qualified for Mediavine, which means, once you have 50,000 page views a month, you can qualify for Mediavine, which means you can earn passive income on your blog from ads. So like anywhere from like $300 to $1,000 a month. But that's really the only thing that changed. And so this is the other thing that I'm always telling people, don't wait to show up online until you can, spend the time and money to get a beautiful website. Just create a one-page website. You can literally do that yourself on, something like Squarespace or Wix, and just make sure on that one-page website, you have your picture, you have your full name because you want to be findable online, and you have, one or two sentences on what you do, like what your niche is. Hi, I'm Amy Gorin, MSRDN. I'm a plant-based dietitian in the New York City area. You want to say geographically where you are, because both media clients and brands, that's something that sometimes they take into account when they're deciding to work with you. If you've been featured in media, have an as seen in section on your website, so 3 to 5 outlets that you've been featured in, have a way to contact you, your email address or a contact page, and then have a link to your top social media platforms if they exist. And that's literally all that you have to have, again, because you want to be findable online for clients who want to hire you to be their practitioner, for media who wants to interview you, and for brands who want to work with you. And I don't even want to say perfect version of all of those things can come later, because it's never perfect. Like even when you have a beautiful website and like, okay, I need to update this. I need to update this. Oh, my bio's out of date. Like there's always something. And I promise you, like there's no single person or brand out there who has everything as quote unquote perfect as they'd want it to be. The secret to success is showing up and being authentic and being present. It's so much more important to, show up if it's your 60%. That could be someone else's 120%. But you're showing up, you're helping people, and you're sharing your experiences and helping everyone realize, like, we're all just human. Sometimes we're sleep deprived humans. We're doing our best, and we're being perfectly imperfect. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come find me on Instagram at Master the Media. Tell me your perfectly imperfect stories. And I would love for you to join us at our upcoming masterclass on how to land paid brand partnerships, whether you're perfect or not. And that URL is masterthemedia.co/masterclass.